Cal-HOSA. Welcome to Spilling the Tea with Health Professionals. I'm Jocelyn Fernandez, your Region 3 Vice President. We are excited to be getting the tea on two dynamic careers within the health industry. In this episode, we will be chatting with Emergency Department Registrar and a licensed marriage and family therapist. Let's jump right to our State President, Ishan Nagpal, as he introduces our first interview.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Today, we have the honor of spending a few minutes with licensed marriage and family therapist, Mrs. Natasha Edelhouse. Mrs. Edelhouse obtained a bachelor's degree in psychology and human behavior from the University of California, Irvine. From there, she went on to earn a master's degree in clinical psychology from Antioch University, located in Marina del Rey, California. After completing her master's degree, Mrs. Edelhouse worked as a social worker, case manager, and a dual recovery specialist. She went on to own and operate a very successful group therapy practice for many years on the East Coast. Eventually, she relocated back to California and settled into her current role as a private practice marriage and family therapist in San Ramon, California. Now, let's turn it over to your state vice president, Vikram Chatterjee, and your state parliamentarian, Krishna Martinez, for a little therapy tea from Mrs. Natasha Edelhouse.
Thanks so much for that intro. We are so excited to be spilling the tea with Mrs. Natasha Edelhouse today. So let's get started.
So Mrs. Edelhouse, before we get into your specific responsibilities, we just want to know how much education is required to become a therapist.
It depends on whether you are looking to get your master's, become a master's professional, or a doctorate, or have a doctorate. So I have my master's, which required college, and then 3 additional years in addition to, or about 2.5 years, in addition to 3,000 hours of experience.
So how would a typical session be like with your clients and your patients?
So basically, the first time somebody calls in and we do a brief intake over the phone just to find out what they are looking for, to make sure it sounds like a good fit. And then the first session is some history taking, some goal setting, and just making sure it's a good connection, establishing what we call a therapeutic rapport. And the sessions are about 50 minutes, and it really depends on whether I'm seeing an adult, a child, a family, or a couple. So I kind of individualize it according to who I'm seeing.
So on that note, and how many patients would you typically see on a daily basis, or does it vary from day to day? Could you just let us know a little bit about that?
Yes, I see my caseload is pretty full. I usually see about 8 patients a day. I do have some weekend hours as well, because keeping in mind that a lot of my patients are working. So I have kind of a variety of hours that I offer.
So among those patients, do you have like a wide variety, or is it like one specific type of patient clientele?
Yes. So I really enjoy a variety. I have adult clients, I have couples, I have families, and I have children that I see. And I really enjoy breaking it up like that.
So when you're discussing patients' experiences or their traumas, do you ever find that you relate their experiences to your own life, or as a therapist, do you really try to be objective in your therapy, or would you try to develop an emotional connection?
It's a very good question. There is something called countertransference, which therapists do encounter. So because we're all emotional beings and because we've all had our experiences, absolutely, some cases touch you more than others. It is important for a therapist to have been in therapy so that you have worked through your own issues so you can be emotionally available to other people. It's also important to have a supervision group, to have other therapists you run ideas by, and it's even recommended to have your own therapy while you're seeing patients so that you can work through issues, just to really make sure that you're helpful to them and you're not reacting from your own experience.
Has COVID-19 had a huge impact on your life in general? Or like your practice? Has it been affected by the pandemic?
Yes, so I have to admit I am busier than ever. It it is so busy for therapists, and it's pretty heartbreaking because people will call and leave messages and just say nobody's returning my call. Everybody is booked. So it's been a really challenging time for people and for therapists. All our calls and all our sessions are via Zoom. So that's been a whole other experience, especially with my work with children, because just like teachers, I'm having to engage them online, which is very different. But I do have to say people are reaching out who've never reached out to therapists before. So I think that the whole value in therapy is really coming to the forefront. And I think that's good, because I'm hoping that people will no longer see it as something that, a service that people utilize when they have severe mental illness, that now people know they can just use it to get support for anything.
Just to continue this discussion of mental health during the pandemic, aside from just going to see a therapist, from your practice in mental health and all the different cases you've seen, what advice would you just give to, especially young students like us who are feeling stressed right now or feeling overwhelmed, or maybe a lack of social interaction? What can we do to just ease that burden currently? What advice would you give?
Yeah, good question. I'm finding that people are having to really think outside of the box. People are spending more time with their families. They are spending time with their friends online. People are going for walks and hikes. People are learning to cook. People are learning to knit. We are really having to think outside of the box because it's just a new world. And so for young people, I think it's just equally important to do that, to just think what can I do that's different.
Well, going off of that, in that case, people have been affected by this pandemic in various different ways. And in fact, I feel like it has inspired additional people, like young people especially, to jump into the field of psychology, to deal with this kind of thing because they themselves have gone through it. And so building off of that, what advice would you like to portray and to give out to those students who maybe might be interested in one day becoming a psychologist?
I've been in this field now for 20 plus years, and it's definitely evolved a lot. People don't look at it as negatively. There are a lot more opportunities, which there weren't when I started out. Insurance companies are reimbursing better. People can make a living and be helpful, and just it's really a great field to go into. It's very rewarding. So I encourage people to go into it.
Mrs. Edelhouse, we've covered a variety of topics from your own practice and to the sphere of mental health as a whole. But before we finish, we just want to know, do you have anything else you would like to share with our audience or our members?
Yes, I think my biggest advice is to keep learning and growing. So the reason that I like a variety of clients is because I feel like then I'm constantly being challenged. And so if I feel like there's a new issue in the world, whether I think I need to meet with more clients that are culturally diverse, or I've recently I started working with more clients going through grief. I hadn't really done that before. I'm just trying to constantly challenge myself and learn. There are people going through certain medical issues. I take the time to learn about those. What does that mean? What's really happening to their minds and bodies, or what are they going through? So you're constantly learning with every new case, and you have to keep challenging yourself like that.
Yeah, I think learning and learning as you do your job and learning as you do things is very vital. Once again, Mrs. Edelhouse, we want to thank you so much for giving us your time and sitting down with us to talk to us about your profession.
My pleasure, and good luck to all of you.
Thanks, Vikram, Prishna, and Mrs. Edelhouse for that tea. Promoting mental health is a passion for California HOSA, so hearing about a profession that impacts the mental well-being of others is truly inspiring. All right, are you guys ready for some emergency tea? Here is your Region 4 Vice President, Stacy Wynn, to tell us more about our next interviewee.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Now we are going to spend a few minutes with one of Lakewood Regional's Emergency Department registrars, Ms. Sandra Alonso. Ms. Alonso is a graduate of Mayfair High School in Lakewood. From there, she went on to Cerritos College to complete her general education courses. After years of working in the banking industry and with the U.S. Postal Services, Sandra decided she wanted to work in healthcare. In 1990, she landed a job at Lakewood Regional Hospital in their emergency department as a registrar. Along with working in the ED, she also works at Mayfair High School as a health aide. Let's turn it over to your State Secretary, Hannah Zia, and your Region 5 Vice President, Audrey Mayorez, as they get Ms. Alonso to spill the ED tea.
Sandra, can you explain what exactly an emergency department registrar is and what you do?
Basically, you see the patient before the nurse or the doctor or the nurse practitioner or the PA, and you basically find out what their complaint is. You try to quickly input their information as to just demographics and their doctor, and just a little portion as to why they're here today. Some will ramble on, but you basically want to hurry up and determine who is more critical to be triaged before someone maybe who is not so critical. So that's basically what we do. We kind of separate patients for the nurses, and we do let them know if we do have anything that's critical that maybe can't wait and needs to jump ahead of, patients who have been waiting to be triaged.
That's actually really interesting. I've never heard of that particular type of job before, so it's really interesting to hear about it. What made you want to pursue this career?
I used to work at a bank finance company for years, and then I got tired of that, had some kids, went to the post office to work, and then I just always thought it was interesting, the medical field. I had wanted to be a nurse at one point, but didn't pursue it. And so my friend just happened to work at Lakewood, and she got me in, back then it was much easier. You just, filled out your application, they interviewed you, and pretty much you were hired if you had good customer service. And basically they would teach you, everything that you need to know. So not every hospital is different. So I just was interested in the medical field, and how I've learned a lot. I'm not a nurse, but I've learned so much, and they work very, very hard.
So you kind of mentioned this a little bit in your response, but can you describe the education requirements to become a registrar for the emergency department?
Well, unfortunately, there's not much. I mean, you basically have to have, of course, you have to have a high school diploma. And I think probably now they would like a year or two of college, but basically you need to be good customer service and be able to deal with patients, from the most, erratic patient to, just people who don't understand why they have to wait. And basically you just have to be patient and kind of have a feel for liking people. So if you're around people and you enjoy being around people of all types, that would be a great job. It's a good way to start out to see if maybe you want to be in the medical field, because you see everything.
So how has COVID-19 affected your job and work responsibilities?
So we basically, as registration, we see the patient first. And the first thing people were saying up until about a month ago was, I'm COVID positive, or I have been, the symptoms of COVID. So we have to basically, we do have the PPEs we can wear. We do have the shield we can wear. We have the N95, which we wear with a regular mask. But just basically triage in the same way. You just basically have to figure out who has the more difficulty breathing with this disease. That was a major concern because a lot of people were more severe than others. I mean, some people had really bad respiratory issues and needed to come in front of, well, basically they all have the waiting area outside now in a tent, and one end is open. We have no one in the hospital with a visitor. And that's really changed. A lot of people don't understand why they can't come visit their family. And even our lobby is now a patient care area, because with just actually recliner chairs. So it's changed a lot, but it's getting better. It's not as busy, and it's, but our job is basically the same. We just had to be more concerned of, washing our hands more often. When we go home, we never wear our shoes in the house at home. And we basically, a lot of people change at work and get out of their scrubs and just, wear their street clothes back home. So it's been very interesting.
So what is the most satisfying part of your job, or what is something that you like to do the most?
I like to just make sure that people understand how the medical system works. Some people have a really kind of a just misunderstanding of how they think they can just come and, everything's so quick and there's a bed for everyone. Well, there's not always that situation. And I love to explain to people how it all works from start to beginning, what's going to happen, and to where they understand and they're not so upset or disagreeable with you. So I just like to talk to people and let them know, this is how it's going to work. And a lot of people just don't realize that there isn't a bed. You're not going to go right into a bed. The doctor's not going to come see you right away. You're going to wait. And so I just like for people to understand. And I love when they, do understand and are patient with us.
Most of our members are in high school, college, and middle school. So what advice would you give to these students interested in this field of work?
Well, I have 3 children, and 2 of them are in the medical field. And I had always told them, if you want to make sure you always have a job in life to where you can work around the clock, you can work anywhere in the world. And there's so many different variations of occupations that, you can just step from one to the next. If you don't care for that one, you can go back to school, do a little bit extra schooling. And so I just think that it's a good occupation. There's so many different types from respiratory therapy to, we have scribes who follow the doctors around to make sure that they document correctly and order the right things for patients. And they are usually going to be a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a PA. So that's really good experience for them. They don't get paid a lot, but they work really hard too. And just kind of gives them a heads up as to what they're expected, down the line when they think they want to be a doctor. But it's just a good position, and you're there to help people. If you aren't a people person, it's not the job for you, probably.
So you had mentioned this earlier about medical scribes. As an emergency department registrar, do you ever work alongside medical scribes? Is there some sort of connection between the two?
Yes, they're all very young. They're just starting college usually, or going, they're trying to usually find out. I can always hear them because the doctor sits right behind us, and they're always talking about where they're going to attend college, if they're going to go to medical school, and how many times it takes them to try to fill out applications to request certain colleges they want to go to and maybe can't get in, and their frustration. But yeah, they're right behind us. They're very sweet. There's men and women, and just hearing their struggles and things that they've witnessed, and they're kind of trying to talk to the doctor as to why did this patient have this, or could we have done anything else? It's very interesting because they're trying to learn also. So yeah, we're right next to them. So we hear them. There's about There's about 3 of them, 1 with a nurse practitioner, 2 with the doctors, and they're right behind us. So we see them all the time.
How do you handle the patient that maybe doesn't want to stay, a patient that wants to leave against medical advice?
We can never force anyone to stay. We can't, grab onto them. We can't call security. The only ones that have to be forced to stay are people who are under a suicide or a homicidal watch. And that's usually a 5150. But we cannot force people to stay. If they're upset because they've waited too long and they don't want to be here, or we don't want them to leave because it goes against the hospital and it doesn't look good on the doctor or the nurse practitioner. So they really try to maybe go out and reevaluate the patient, talk to the patient, try to get them a bed if it's convenient. But like I said, a lot of times people, more of our people, they stay. They really, because they know how it is. We're a smaller hospital, but they know how it is, that they need to wait. If they go to a bigger hospital, they're going to wait even longer. So
Thank you so much, Sandra. I have learned so much about emergency department registrar, and I'm actually really interested in the career now. It seems so much fun and that you're really impacting patients at the front line. So thank you for all that you do.
no problem. Thank you, girls. It was nice meeting you.
Unbelievable. Having a job in the emergency department processing patients sounds like a great entry-level position, maybe while you're going to school. I might actually have to check that out for myself. Okay, guys, that's all the time we have for this episode. Make sure to check out our final episode for this season, airing on April 15th. But for now, that's the tea.